Sometimes a man hits the end of the trail with nothing but grit in his teeth and a dog that won't leave his side. For Bill, that dog was a sharp-eyed German shepherd named Roger. They weren't hunting glory, just a dry place to sleep, when a wind-scoured sign led them to a forgotten storage yard on the edge of Dry Gulch. Inside a locker with a door that screamed like a banshee, Roger nosed out a cracked leather satchel, a palm-sized carved box that seemed to hum, and a brittle journal that began, "To whomever finds this." What started as scavenging turned into a breadcrumb trail. Old photographs with eyes that follow you, a tarnished locket that wouldn't stay cold, a map sketched in a widow's hand, and a key that fit something buried where the trees lean in to listen. Each clue pulled Bill and Roger deeper, from whispers in the sage to a grove where the air itself felt charged, toward a secret folks had twisted into a curse and a wrong that needed setting right. Would the truth mend a broken past, or wake something that doesn't forgive? Saddle up and decide with us. Before we ride in, tell me where you're tuning in from, and if this kind of midnight mystery grabs you, hit subscribe, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special just for you. The sun hung low over the dusty horizon, casting long shadows that stretched like the fingers of a giant reaching for the earth. The wind whistled a mournful tune as it danced through the parched sagebrush, sending a shiver down Bill's spine. He paused, squinting into the distance, where the remnants of an old storage yard lay abandoned, its rusted fences and crumbling walls standing as sentinels of forgotten days. The town of Dry Gulch was a place where folks whispered tales of lost fortunes and ghostly encounters, and today, Bill had a mind to uncover some stories of his own. "Come on, Roger," he said, nudging his faithful German shepherd with a booted foot. The dog's ears perked up, sensing the change in the air. Roger trotted beside him, his dark coat gleaming in the fading sunlight, a silent sentinel with instincts sharper than a rattlesnake's fangs. They had been wandering the back trails of the frontier for some time, Bill looking for work and Roger keeping a watchful eye for trouble. As they approached the storage yard, the temperature seemed to drop, a chill seeping through the layers of dust and despair that clung to the place. Bill pulled his weathered duster tighter around his shoulders, a frown knitting his brow. "Ain't right, this feeling. Almost like the spirit of the land's been stirred awake," he muttered, kicking at a stone that skittered across the ground. Roger halted, his nose twitching as he sniffed the air, an almost supernatural awareness flickering in his dark eyes. The dog whined softly, his body tense, as if sensing a storm brewing beneath the placid surface of the world. Bill knelt beside him, running a hand over the dog's broad head. "What is it, boy? Smelling trouble, are you?" They rounded the corner of a dilapidated building, the wood splintered and worn, as if the years had gnawed at its frame. The wind howled louder, and for a moment, the world around them seemed to hold its breath. Bill's heart quickened, a blend of curiosity and caution stirring within him. He had seen his share of oddities on the trail, but this felt different, like the ghost of a forgotten past was beckoning him closer. "Let's take a gander," he said, his voice low and steady as he moved toward the nearest locker, its heavy door hanging ajar, rusted hinges squeaking like a banshee in the night. Inside, shadows loomed, deep and oppressive, and the air grew colder still, biting through Bill's skin like the sharp edge of winter. He hesitated, his instincts honed by years of riding the range, but the allure of the unknown pulled him in. "Stay close, Roger," he instructed, stepping through the threshold. The interior was littered with debris, broken furniture, scattered bits of metal, and the remnants of lives long past. He could almost hear the echoes of laughter and sorrow that once filled the space, now replaced by an eerie silence. Roger's hackles rose, and he let out a low growl, the sound reverberating off the walls like thunder in the distance. Bill turned, eyeing his companion with concern. "What's got your dander up, boy?" he asked. But before he could gather his thoughts, a frigid gust swept through the locker, wrapping around him like an icy hand. He shivered, feeling the chill seep into his bones, and instinctively reached for the old lantern hanging on a rusted nail. With a flick of the flint, a soft glow illuminated the cramped space. The light danced over an object half buried in the dirt, a leather satchel, its surface cracked and weathered, but still intact. Bill knelt, brushing aside the debris, revealing the satchel in its entirety. He glanced at Roger, who was now alert, eyes fixed on the object as if it held the secrets of the universe. "Let's see what treasure we've stumbled upon," Bill said, his voice laced with a mix of excitement and trepidation. He unfastened the buckle, the metal clinking in the stillness, and opened it slowly, as if afraid of what lay inside. The air grew heavier, and the temperature plummeted further, making him feel as though the very essence of the place was drawing closer, pulling him into its depth. What he found inside made his breath hitch. A collection of old photographs, their edges yellowed with age, and a small, intricately carved box that glimmered with an otherworldly light. The box seemed to hum with energy, vibrating softly in the lantern's glow, and Bill's heart raced as he reached for it. Roger barked suddenly, a sharp sound that echoed through the locker, breaking the spell of silence. Bill froze, glancing at the dog, whose body was tense, as if ready to spring. He turned back to the box, but before he could lift it from the satchel, the chill in the air deepened, and another worldly whisper swept through the room, chilling him to the marrow. "Bill," it breathed, a voice barely discernible yet echoing with an urgency that sent a shiver down his spine. His heart pounding, Bill glanced back at Roger, who was staring wide-eyed at the shadows that danced just beyond the flickering light. Bill realized, with a dawning sense of dread, that they had stumbled upon something far more significant than mere trinkets left behind. This was a doorway, and whatever lay ahead promised to be a wild ride, a mystery that would tether him to a fate far beyond his simple cowboy life. With a resolve born of desperation, he reached for the box, the very air crackling with anticipation, and as he did, he felt the weight of the past pressing down on him, a past that was now entwined with his own. Bill's hand hovered over the box, its surface warm to the touch, pulsing with an unearthly rhythm that seemed to synchronize with his racing heart. "What in tarnation is this?" he murmured, his voice barely a whisper, as though afraid that speaking too loudly might awaken whatever lay within the depths of the locker. Roger, ever vigilant, moved closer, his nose twitching as he sniffed the air, his instincts sharper than a rattlesnake's fangs. The dog's growl rumbled low in his throat, a warning that sent a shiver up Bill's spine. "Easy, boy," he soothed, forcing himself to steady his nerves. "Just a box, right? Ain't nothing but a bit of old leather and wood." But even as he spoke, a part of him knew better. There was an ancient weight to the box that felt almost alive. He gently lifted it from the satchel, feeling the coolness of the wood seep into his palm. The lantern's light flickered, casting long shadows that danced against the walls, and Bill felt as though he were not alone. The whispers grew louder, swirling around him like a haunting melody, tugging at the edges of his consciousness. "What do you want?" he asked, half expecting a response. The only answer was the wind howling outside, howling like a lost soul searching for home. With a sudden determination, he set the box on a nearby crate that had seen better days. Dust motes floated in the lantern's glow, and he brushed away the remnants of time to reveal the box's intricate carvings, a series of symbols that looked vaguely familiar, like something he had glimpsed in the dusty pages of an old tome back in town. Might be some old Native American markings, he thought, squinting to decipher their meanings. Bill took a step back, giving the box a wary glance. If this ain't a riddle, I don't know what is. He could feel the air thickening around him, and with a swift motion, he pulled out the photographs from the satchel, examining each one with growing intrigue. They depicted families, smiling faces frozen in time, and one photo caught his eye. A young woman with striking blue eyes, her expression one of hope. The corner was torn, as if something had been hastily removed. "Now that's mighty odd," he muttered, holding the picture closer to the lantern. "What happened to you, miss?" The woman seemed to reach out from the past, her gaze both inviting and sorrowful. Bill tucked the photograph away carefully, sensing that it might hold a clue to the mystery at hand. Roger's ears perked up, and he sniffed the air again, this time with more urgency. The dog's body was tense, muscles coiled like a rattler ready to strike. Bill knelt beside him, placing a hand on the dog's back. "What is it, boy? You smell something?" As if in answer, Roger darted toward the far wall, his nose to the ground, following a scent only he could detect. Bill scrambled to his feet, curiosity piquing his interest. "Hold your horses, partner. Where you off to?" He hurried after the dog, stepping over debris and old crates, the lantern swinging wildly as he navigated the darkness. Roger stopped in front of a long-abandoned shelf, its wood rotting and sagging under the weight of years. The dog pawed at the ground, revealing a glimmer of something metallic beneath the dust and dirt. Bill bent down, brushing away the layers of neglect to uncover an old compass. Its glass cracked, but the needle still spinning as if searching for a true north that had long since vanished. "Now ain't that peculiar," Bill said, holding it up to the light. "What would a compass be doing here?" He squinted at the intricate engravings on the casing. They mirrored the symbols from the box, swirling patterns that seemed to dance with a life of their own. "Seems like we got ourselves a connection," Roger barked, snapping Bill from his reverie. The dog was staring at something else on the shelf, a small, leather-bound journal tucked behind a broken lamp. With a surge of adrenaline, Bill reached for it, his fingers trembling with anticipation. He carefully pried it free and opened the cover, the pages yellowed and brittle, filled with spidery handwriting that spoke of dreams and fears, of lost love and shadows that crept in the night. "To whomever finds this," Bill read aloud, his voice echoing in the cramped locker, "I write these words as a warning. There are forces at play that are beyond our understanding. This box holds a power that can bring forth that which has been lost, but it comes at a price." A cold wind swept through the locker again, extinguishing the lantern for a heartbeat, plunging him into darkness. Panic flared in Bill's chest as he fumbled for the flint. But before he could relight the flame, he felt Roger's body press against his leg, the dog's warmth a reassuring presence in the encroaching gloom. Bill managed to reignite the lantern, its flickering light revealing Roger's wide eyes, fixed on the shadows that seemed to shift and swirl in response to the journal's ominous words. "What in the wide world is going on?" he breathed, scanning the corners of the room, half expecting to see a ghostly figure emerge. The journal continued with more warnings, speaking of an ancient ritual that could summon spirits, a tale woven with caution and dread. "You've got to be kidding me," Bill said, running a hand through his hair, feeling the weight of the world on his shoulders. "A summoning? What kind of fool would mess with that?" Roger growled low again, his gaze fixed on the far end of the locker where the shadows thickened. Bill's heart raced as he turned back to the box, still pulsing with that strange energy. Perhaps it was merely a relic of the past, but deep down, he sensed it was much more, a conduit to something beyond his understanding. "Seems we've got ourselves a mystery, boy," he said, determination hardening in his chest. "And I reckon it's up to us to solve it." The air around them crackled with anticipation, and as he took a deep breath, he felt the pull of destiny beckoning him onward, ready to face whatever lay ahead. Bill stood in the dim light of the lantern, the flickering flame casting long shadows that danced along the walls of the storage locker. The journal, now opened on the splintered shelf, whispered secrets of the past that beckoned him deeper into the mystery. He squinted at the faded ink, trying to decipher the spidery script that seemed to shift under his gaze. "Let's see what else you've got to say," he murmured, brushing his fingers over the pages. The musty scent of old paper filled the air, mingling with the dust that had settled for years without disturbance. As he scanned the lines, a chill crept down his spine, the warnings growing more intense, warning of the consequences that awaited those who dared to summon the spirits that lingered in the shadows. "They will come," he read aloud, his voice barely above a whisper, "and they will not be pleased." He felt Roger's body tense beside him, the dog's ears perked up, every muscle ready for action. "What do you make of that, boy?" he asked, glancing down at his faithful companion. Roger met his gaze, a low growl rumbling in his throat, as if he understood the gravity of the words. Bill knew better than to take these matters lightly. Out here in the wide-open plains, where the wind carried tales of lost souls and vengeful spirits, he had heard his fair share of ghost stories spun by old-timers in the saloon. He thought of the woman in the photograph, the sorrowful blue eyes that seemed to call out for help. "I reckon we need to figure out who she is," he said, determination hardening in his chest. "And what's this power they're talking about?" He rummaged through the clutter of the locker, pulling out old newspapers and rusted tools, searching for any clue that might lead him to the truth. The air was thick with anticipation, and the atmosphere buzzed with an unexplainable energy. As he dug, he noticed something gleaming at the back of the shelf, a small silver locket half buried in the debris. He reached for it, his fingers brushing against the cool metal, and felt a jolt of electricity shoot up his arm. "Whoa there," he muttered, examining the locket. It was engraved with the same swirling patterns as the compass and the box, and a sense of foreboding settled over him. He opened it, revealing a tiny portrait of a woman with the same striking blue eyes as the one in the photograph. "Well, I'll be," he said, his voice barely a whisper. "This must be her." Roger whined softly, nudging Bill's hand as if urging him to make sense of it all. Bill took a breath, feeling the weight of the connection. "You're telling me this box has something to do with her, ain't you?" The dog barked once, a sharp sound that echoed in the quiet. Bill tucked the locket away, determined to uncover the truth. He stepped back, surveying the cluttered locker once more. "Let's think this through, Roger. If this box can summon spirits, maybe it can also lead us to answers. But we gotta be careful, you hear? Ain't no sense in stirring up trouble we can't handle." With Roger by his side, Bill returned to the box, feeling its energy thrumming beneath his fingers. The ancient wood felt alive, as if it held a heartbeat of its own. He glanced around the locker, searching for anything that could provide further guidance. The journal had spoken of rituals and incantations, but he didn't have the faintest idea how to go about such things. "Now let's not jump in blind," he said, lifting the box again and inspecting its edges. "There's got to be something more to this." He noticed a faint outline of what seemed to be a latch hidden among the designs. With a gentle tug, it clicked open, revealing a hidden compartment beneath the base. "What do you reckon, Roger?" he asked, his heart racing with excitement. He reached inside, pulling out a small pouch made of soft leather. The moment he held it in his hand, a wave of cold air rushed through the locker, making the lantern flicker dangerously. "Easy there, fella," Bill whispered, steadying himself against the shelf. He undid the drawstring and poured the contents into his palm. A handful of strange, shimmering stones spilled forth, each one radiating an otherworldly glow that pulsed like a heartbeat. Roger whimpered, backing away slightly, as if sensing the potent energy emanating from the stones. "I hear you, boy," Bill said, feeling the weight of the discovery pressing on him. "This ain't just any old trinkets." Urdin, as he examined the stones, he recalled the journal's mention of a ritual. The pieces began to fit together in his mind like a jigsaw puzzle. "These must be the components," he said, excitement bubbling in his chest. But what kind of ritual? Before he could ponder further, Roger growled again, this time more fiercely, his body tense. Bill turned, following the dog's gaze toward the far corner of the locker. The shadows twisted unnaturally, coalescing into a darker form, as if something was watching them from the depths of the darkness. "Great day in the morning," Bill breathed, heart racing. He felt the air grow heavy, charged with an energy that prickled his skin. "I reckon it's time to skedaddle, Roger. We best figure this out outside." With the pouch clutched tightly in one hand and the journal in the other, he backed toward the entrance. Roger stayed close, a loyal sentinel by his side. The sensation of being watched intensified, and Bill could feel the presence lurking just beyond the edge of the lantern's light, whispering secrets that hung like a shroud. "Time to get out of here," he said, taking one last glance at the box. "But I ain't finished with you yet." With that, he slipped through the door of the storage locker, the cool night air hitting his face like a slap as he stepped back into the open. The stars twinkled overhead, a vast canvas of mystery, and the wind carried a whisper that sent a shiver down his spine. Bill looked down at Roger, who remained alert and watchful, ready for whatever was to come. "We're just getting started, ain't we, boy?" he said, a mix of apprehension and excitement thrumming through him. The night stretched ahead, filled with unknown dangers and the promise of answers. And Bill felt a new sense of purpose ignite within him. Bill took a moment to gather his wits, the faint light of the lantern flickering in the dark like a restless spirit. He had the pouch of stones and the journal, but now it seemed he was in a race against time. Whatever lurked in that locker was bound to keep its secrets close, and Bill wasn't about to let fear drive him away. "Let's head back to the cabin, Roger," he said, his voice steady despite the chill that ran through him. "We'll figure this out under the glow of a fire." With Roger at his heel, Bill made his way back to his humble abode, the wooden structure creaking slightly in the wind as he approached. The night was alive with sounds, the rustling of leaves, the distant hoot of an owl, and the whisper of the wind as it wove through the trees. Each sound seemed amplified in the stillness, and Bill felt the weight of the secrets he carried heavy upon his shoulders. Inside, he set the lantern on the table, casting a warm glow that pushed back the shadows. The cabin was small, but it felt safe, a refuge from the eerie mystery that danced at the edges of his mind. He set the pouch down carefully, glancing at Roger, who was sniffing around the room with purpose. His ears perked up as he surveyed every corner. "Keep watch, will ya?" Bill said, chuckling softly at his faithful companion. Roger's loyalty was as unyielding as the mountains that surrounded them, and it gave Bill a measure of comfort. He opened the journal, flipping through the pages stained with age. The ink was faded but legible, and he could still make out the neat cursive writing that spoke of rituals and the powers of the stones. "Let's see what you got for me," he murmured, scanning the passages carefully. There was mention of moon phases, of gathering at the witching hour when the veil between worlds was thinnest. The stones were to be arranged in a specific pattern, forming a star shape that would supposedly enhance their power. Bill frowned, his brow furrowing as he read further. There were warnings, too, about the dangers of summoning spirits without knowing their intent. "Seems like a mighty risky endeavor," he muttered, running a hand through his hair. Suddenly, Roger let out a low growl, snapping Bill back to the present. He looked up just in time to see the dog's body tense, ears perked, staring out the window. "What is it, boy?" Bill whispered, his heart racing as he followed Roger's gaze. Outside, the moonlight bathed the land in silvery light, and the shadows shifted in the underbrush. The unease crept back in, and Bill felt a bead of sweat trickle down his back despite the coolness of the night. "I reckon we ain't alone," he said, trying to keep his voice steady. He moved to the window, peering into the darkness beyond, but all he saw was the rustle of branches swaying in the wind. "Just the night playing tricks on us, I suppose." But Roger wasn't convinced. The dog remained on high alert, his growl deepening, and Bill felt a chill run down his spine. "All right, let's not jump to conclusions," he said, trying to reassure both Roger and himself. "We got work to do." He turned back to the table and gathered the stones, placing them in a neat row before him. Each one gleamed in the lantern light, casting strange reflections that danced on the wooden walls. "Let's see what you can do," Bill said, determination hardening his voice. With steady hands, he began to arrange the stones in a star formation, recalling the instructions from the journal. As he placed the last stone, a sudden gust of wind rattled the cabin, causing the lantern to flicker once more. "Whoa there!" he exclaimed, glancing around the room. Roger barked, his stance rigid, as if ready to defend against unseen threats. "Easy, fella," Bill said, trying to keep his composure. "We're just settling the stage for a little chat with the unknown." Once the stones were arranged, he flipped to the section of the journal detailing the incantation. The words rolled off his tongue like an old cowboy ballad, ancient and strange. As he spoke, the air thickened, vibrating with energy. Bill felt a rush of warmth wash over him, and for a fleeting moment he thought he saw shadows flickering at the edge of his vision, dancing just beyond the lantern's light. Then the room fell silent. Roger's growl faded, and a stillness enveloped them, heavy and expectant. Bill paused, heart pounding, waiting for something, anything, to happen. "Did I do it right?" he asked, glancing at Roger, who seemed to be watching the shadows with rapt attention. A shiver ran through Bill as he sensed the air grow colder, the kind of cold that seeped into your bones. Suddenly, a soft whisper brushed against his ear, like a gentle sigh carried by the wind. "Help me," it murmured, barely audible yet laced with an urgency that sent a jolt through him. "Did you hear that, Roger?" Bill asked, his voice barely above a whisper. The dog's ears perked up, and he whined softly, shifting closer to Bill, as if trying to protect him from an unseen foe. Bill's heart raced as he scanned the room, looking for the source of the voice. "Who are you?" he called out, his hands trembling slightly. "What do you need?" The shadows seemed to pulse, the air thickening with anticipation, and Bill knew deep down he had opened a door, one that could lead to answers, or perhaps something far more sinister. With Roger beside him, he prepared for whatever came next, ready to face the unknown head-on. Bill's heart thudded in his chest like the hooves of a stampede, each beat reverberating through the stillness of the cabin. The whisper echoed in his mind, heavy with a sense of longing and desperation. "Help me." It was a plea that felt as though it had drifted through time itself, seeking him out from beyond the veil. "All right, calm down," he murmured to Roger, who was still on high alert, eyes darting around as if he could see what lay hidden in the shadows. "We ain't in a hurry. Let's take this one step at a time." Bill took a deep breath, trying to steady the tremor in his hands. He needed to think practically, like a good cowboy would when faced with a wild stallion. He turned back to the journal, flipping pages until he found a section that described the spirit world's connection to the physical realm. "There's got to be more to this," he said, scanning the text for any clues that might shed light on the voice he'd just heard. "Let's see. Ah, here it is. Spirits are bound by their earthly ties. They seek closure or they seek revenge." Bill felt a knot tighten in his stomach. What kind of spirit was he dealing with? "Roger, what do you reckon?" he asked, glancing down at the dog. Roger whined softly, his gaze still fixed on the door, tail tucked tightly between his legs. Bill sighed. He wished he could read his companion's mind. "You got a nose for trouble, don't you?" With a newfound resolve, Bill decided it was time to gather some more tools for this spiritual investigation. He had a lantern, a journal, and now he needed to see if there were any remnants of the past still lingering in the storage locker. "Let's head back out there, partner," he said, giving Roger a reassuring pat. "Maybe there's something else we can find that'll help us make sense of this." Dubus, as he stepped outside, the cool night air wrapped around him like a familiar blanket, and the stars twinkled like diamonds scattered across the vast expanse above. The moon hung low, illuminating the path to the storage locker, its light casting long shadows that danced with the wind. Roger moved alongside him, ever watchful, sniffing the air as they made their way across the yard. When they reached the storage locker, Bill noticed a peculiar stillness in the air, as if the night itself was holding its breath. He knelt by the door, giving it a gentle tug. It creaked open, revealing the darkened interior filled with remnants of lives once lived. Dust motes floated lazily in the moonlight, and the scent of aged wood and forgotten memories wafted out to greet him. "Let's see what secrets you're hiding," Bill muttered, stepping inside. He rummaged through the assorted items, old saddles, rusted tools, and a few boxes that had seen better days. Each object felt like a piece of history, waiting to tell its story. He opened one box to find an array of trinkets, a tarnished locket, a wooden whistle, and a collection of faded photographs. "Nothing too special here," he said, holding up the locket. "But what about you?" He turned to the next box, a larger wooden crate with a broken latch. As he pried it open, a wave of cold air rushed out, sending shivers down his spine. Inside lay an assortment of stones, each one glimmering with an otherworldly sheen. They were similar to the ones he had arranged back at the cabin. Seems like I'm not the only one with a knack for collecting, Bill remarked, picking up a smooth, dark stone that felt warm in his palm. He turned it over, noting strange markings etched into its surface. What do you think, Roger? Is this what we need? Roger sniffed at the stones, his ears twitching, and then looked back at Bill as if urging him to pay attention. Bill felt a spark of excitement ignite within him. All right, let's take them back and see if they can help us figure out who's calling for help. With the stones safely tucked away, they made their way back to the cabin, the air growing heavier with each step, as though the night had a secret to share. Once inside, Bill arranged the new stones around the original ones in a careful pattern, his hands steady as he worked. The markings on the dark stone glowed faintly under the lantern light, casting an ethereal shimmer across the room. "Here we go again," he murmured, positioning the last stone in place. The moment his fingers left its surface, the air crackled with energy, a palpable shift that sent a thrill through him. Bill took a deep breath, his voice steady as he began to repeat the incantation from the journal, feeling the words resonate within the walls of the cabin. "Help me." The whisper came again, louder this time, swirling around him like a gust of wind. Bill's heart raced as shadows flickered against the walls, twisting and turning as if alive. Roger barked, his fur bristling, and Bill felt the weight of unseen eyes upon him. "Who are you?" he called out, his voice echoing through the cabin, tinged with urgency. "What do you want?" In that moment, the shadows coalesced, forming a faint outline of a figure, a woman, her face obscured but her presence undeniably strong. Bill could feel the sadness that hung in the air, a sorrow that wrapped around him like a heavy shroud. "Help me!" The voice echoed again, but this time it carried a deeper sense of desperation, a plea that reverberated through the very core of his being. Bill steadied himself, determination flaring anew. "I'm here. I'm listening," he said, his eyes locked onto the shifting figure, ready to uncover the truth behind the mystery that had been set in motion. Together with Roger, he prepared to delve deeper into the heart of the unknown, knowing that the answers they sought lay just beyond the veil. The spectral figure flickered like a candle in the wind, her presence both eerie and poignant. Bill felt a stirring in his heart, a mix of compassion and resolve. He knew he couldn't shy away from this moment, not when the woman seemed to reach out through the veil of shadows, pleading for aid. "Why are you trapped here?" he asked, trying to keep his voice steady, despite the shiver running down his spine. The cabin felt alive, as though it held its breath, waiting for a response. The figure wavered, and the shadows around her twisted like restless spirits. "Help me!" The voice, once a whisper, now carried a hint of urgency, pulling at the very essence of Bill's being. "Okay, I'll help you," he vowed, his words a lifeline thrown into the depths of the unknown. He glanced at Roger, who remained alert, his nose quivering and ears perked. The dog seemed to sense the weight of the moment, his gaze darting between Bill and the figure, as if weighing the unseen threads of fate that bound them all together. "Let's see if we can find out who you are." Bill turned back to the stones, his heart racing. Each one felt like a key, a potential unlock to the mystery surrounding the woman's sorrow. He rummaged through his mind, recalling the journal's earlier passages. There must be a way to communicate, to understand what's kept you bound to this place. With the lantern casting flickering light, he gathered his courage and spoke the incantation again, his voice rising and falling, like the distant howling of the wind outside. "Show me your truth." The air thickened, charged with an electric tension, and the shadows around the figure brightened momentarily, revealing glimpses of a past not yet forgotten. Images danced in his mind, rolling hills, a homestead that once bustled with life, and a flicker of joy that quickly morphed into despair. He saw the woman standing on a porch, her face bright with laughter, but the scene darkened as he watched shadows creep in, twisting the warmth into something cold and sinister. "Bill!" Roger barked, breaking the spell that held him captive. The dog was tense, his eyes locked onto a corner of the cabin, and Bill turned to follow his gaze. "What is it, boy?" he whispered, sensing the shift in the air. A chill swept through the cabin, snatching the warmth from the lantern's light, and he felt the presence of something else, something darker lurking just beyond the reach of illumination. "Get back!" Bill commanded, grabbing the lantern and raising it high, casting light into the dark corners of the room. "Show yourself!" But the shadows only deepened, swirling with an intent that felt almost malevolent. Roger growled low, and Bill could see the muscles in his dog's back tense. He knelt beside him, whispering, "Stay close, partner." As the shadows writhed, the figure of the woman seemed to strengthen, her voice piercing through the chaos. "Find the locket. The locket will guide you." "The locket?" Bill echoed, suddenly remembering the tarnished piece of jewelry he had found in the storage box. "Is that what you're looking for?" With a burst of resolve, he dashed back to the box, frantically searching through its contents until he unearthed the locket, its surface cold and unyielding. "Is this it?" He held it aloft, feeling the weight of its importance in his palm. The woman's form flickered, her expression shifting between desperation and hope. Yes, yes. The shadows shivered around her, and Bill could sense the tightening grip of the malevolence lurking in the corners of the room. With a swift movement, he opened the locket, revealing a faded photograph of the woman and a man, their faces beaming with joy. "Who is he?" Bill wondered aloud, feeling the rush of emotions that surged around them. "What happened to you both?" The shadows grew restless, a deep, rumbling growl echoing from the corners of the cabin. Roger barked again, his stance protective, and Bill felt a surge of fear. The locket was not merely a trinket, it was a beacon, a connection to a past that was clearly not ready to be forgotten. "Stay with me, Roger," he said, his voice low and steady. "We're gonna solve this together." He closed his eyes for a moment, steadying his breath, and recalled the journal's words about the power of memories and the connection between the living and the spirits that lingered. "Let's give her the peace she needs." With a newfound determination, Bill turned back to the figure. "Tell me what you need. We'll set it right, I promise." The woman's outline softened, and for the first time, Bill felt a flicker of warmth emanating from her. "The man, my husband, he was wronged. The locket holds the truth." Bill's heart raced, and he felt the gravity of the situation pulling him deeper into the mystery. "I'll find out what happened to him. I swear it." As he moved to gather the stones and focus his energy, he could feel the presence of the shadows closing in, the air thickening with malevolence. "Stay sharp, Roger. We're not alone here." The dog nodded, his keen instincts ever alert, and together they prepared to confront whatever dark force sought to keep the truth buried. Bill knew the journey ahead would demand every ounce of his courage and wits, but the woman's plea ignited a fire within him. They would unravel the threads of the past, no matter how deep or dangerous the shadows they had to traverse. The frontier might be wild, but it was nothing compared to the fight for a lost soul seeking redemption. Bill's heart pounded like a runaway horse as he crouched beside the storage box, the locket still warm in his palm. Shadows clung to the corners of the cabin like whispers of a forgotten past, swirling ominously as the woman's spirit beckoned him to act. The air was thick with a mixture of dust and something more sinister, like an uninvited chill that had settled over the land. "Hang tight, darling," he murmured to the apparition, his voice barely above a whisper. "We're gonna find out what went down." Roger's ears perked up, his nose quivering as he caught a scent of something amiss. The dog's instincts were sharp, honed by years of roaming the rugged terrain alongside Bill. The cowboy trusted his loyal companion more than he trusted most folks. "Keep your eyes peeled, partner," Bill said, rising slowly to his feet, the lantern's light casting long, dancing shadows across the walls. With the locket in hand, Bill felt its weight, a tangible connection to the woman's plight. He stepped carefully around the clutter of old crates and rusted tools, the wood creaking beneath his boots. Each creak seemed to echo the unspoken fears that lingered in the air, and Bill could almost feel the presence of the malevolence pressing against him. The journal had spoken of lost treasures and hidden truths. Perhaps there were more clues hidden in the cabin itself. He glanced at Roger, who was sniffing diligently at the ground, tail twitching. "What is it, boy?" Bill asked, squatting beside him. The dog let out a soft whimper, his gaze locked onto a corner where the light barely reached. "Looks like you found something." Bill moved toward the spot, bending low. As he shuffled through the debris, his fingers grazed over something cool and metallic. He pulled it into the light, revealing an old, tarnished key. "Well, I'll be. What do you reckon this unlocks?" Roger let out a low growl, his body tense, as though sensing the key's significance. Bill could feel the air thicken again, a reminder that they were not alone in this endeavor. "Looks like we got ourselves a mystery, boy. Let's find the lock it fits." Bill straightened, eyeing the cabin with a fresh perspective. If there was a key, there had to be a corresponding lock somewhere nearby. He stepped carefully, avoiding the rotting floorboards as he inspected the walls. Dust motes swirled in the lantern's glow, and the scent of aged timber filled his nostrils, whispering secrets of those who had come before. Where would a lock be hiding in a place like this? He pondered aloud, moving toward a dilapidated cupboard that leaned precariously against the wall. With a firm grip, he pulled it open, revealing an empty space, save for an old whiskey bottle that had long since gone dry. "Not here," he muttered, though he couldn't shake the feeling that the cupboard had held more than just dust and memories. He moved to the other side of the cabin, checking every nook and cranny, when Roger barked sharply, snapping Bill from his thoughts. "Easy there, boy!" Bill followed Roger's gaze to a battered trunk, half hidden beneath a tattered canvas. The trunk was locked, the metal hinges rusted but sturdy. "Well, what do we have here?" He knelt down, the lantern casting light on the intricate design etched into the wood. It looked old, older than the cabin itself, with carvings that appeared to tell a story, perhaps the story of the woman and her husband. "You think this key might fit?" he asked Roger, who watched intently, his eyes glinting with intelligence. With cautious anticipation, Bill inserted the key into the lock. The mechanism resisted at first, but after a firm twist, it clicked open with a sound that reverberated like thunder in the silent cabin. Bill lifted the lid slowly, the creaking wood echoing the tension in the air. Inside lay an assortment of items: a faded quilt, a collection of letters tied with twine, and a small leather-bound book. The quilt looked like it had seen better days, but the letters intrigued him. They were yellowed and frayed at the edges, the ink barely legible. "This might hold the answers we're looking for," he murmured, his fingers brushing against the letters as he carefully untied the twine. Roger sniffed the air, his instincts ever alert, and Bill could feel the atmosphere shift again, as if the cabin itself were holding its breath. He carefully opened the first letter, the words flowing across the page like a story long left untold. It spoke of love and dreams, but also of betrayal and loss. "Bill," the woman's voice echoed softly, breaking through the whispers of the past. "You must find the truth of my husband's fate. The locket and the letters will guide you. Beware the shadow that lingers." The shadow seemed to quiver at her words, a palpable energy filling the space around him. Bill's pulse quickened. "I won't let you down," he vowed, feeling the weight of responsibility settle on his shoulders. He turned to Roger, who was still alert, his posture tense as he scanned the room. "Let's take a look at these letters and see what we can piece together. There's a mystery to unravel here, and I've a feeling we're just scratching the surface." As he read the letters, one by one, the chilling story began to unfold. Of a husband wronged by a neighbor over a piece of land, of jealousy that twisted into a violent confrontation, and of a love that was shattered in the process. The pieces of the puzzle began to align, revealing a haunting tale of betrayal that echoed through time. The atmosphere thickened with urgency, shadows stretching and shifting as if eager to cloak the truth in darkness. With every letter Bill read, he felt the weight of the woman's sorrow press against him like a storm about to break. "We're gonna bring this to light," he promised, determination burning in his chest. Outside, the wind howled, a mournful sound that carried with it the echoes of the past, and within the cabin, Bill and Roger stood resolute against the encroaching darkness, ready to confront whatever lay ahead. The faint smell of damp earth and fading wood surrounded Bill as he continued to sift through the letters. Each one unfolded like a petal of a long-dead flower, revealing secrets that had been buried beneath layers of time. He felt a chill creep up his spine, a whisper of the past intertwining with the present. "Look here, Roger," he said, glancing at the dog, who remained steadfast at his side, ears perked and nostrils flaring. "This one mentions a locket. Could be the same one the woman spoke of. Might lead us straight to the heart of this mess." He held the letter closer to the lantern's flickering light, the words appearing more vibrant in the shadows. "There's mention of a hidden place, a grove by the river where they used to meet. Sounds like a romantic spot, don't it?" Roger let out a soft whine, as if to say that they needed to hurry. Bill chuckled lightly, appreciative of his dog's instincts. "You're right, boy. We ain't got time to dawdle. But first we ought to find that locket." He carefully placed the letters back into the trunk, making sure to keep the most recent one at the top. "We'll head to that grove once we're done here," he said, almost to himself. With a final glance at the trunk, he rose to his feet and began surveying the cabin for anything that might lead him to the locket. "Maybe it's hiding somewhere nearby," he mused, peering into corners and crevices, lifting old, dust-covered objects in his search. Roger trotted ahead, nose to the ground, sniffing out remnants of the past. Bill followed closely, each creak of the floorboards beneath his boots a reminder of the cabin's age. The air felt thicker, laden with the weight of memories and unfulfilled promises. It was as if the very walls were listening, waiting for the truth to be uncovered. "Find anything, Roger?" Bill called out, moving toward the fireplace where a few charred logs still lay. The fireplace seemed untouched by time, a stark contrast to the rest of the cabin, and Bill knelt down to inspect it. "Could be something hidden in the ashes." Roger barked softly and pawed at the ground, his movements quickening as he caught a scent. Bill smiled, grateful for the dog's keen senses. "Let's see what you've got, partner." He dug through the remnants of the fire, careful not to breathe in the soot. With a few deft movements, his fingers brushed against something solid and smooth, something that did not belong in the ashy rubble. He pulled it free, revealing a small silver locket, tarnished but intact. It was shaped like a heart, its surface etched with delicate swirls, remnants of a once bright polish now dulled by years of neglect. "Well, would you look at that?" Bill exclaimed, holding the locket up for Roger to see. "Seems like we struck gold, or at least silver." Roger wagged his tail, sensing the excitement. Bill opened the locket with a gentle click, revealing two tiny portraits within. One of a striking young woman with warm eyes and a gentle smile, the other of a man with a strong jaw and a hint of sadness in his gaze. "This must be them," Bill said, feeling a connection to the couple captured in the faded images. "Now," he continued, "if these letters spoke of a grove, then that's where we'll head next. Might be the key to settle in this mystery once and for all." He tucked the locket safely into his pocket, feeling its cool metal against his leg. With one last look around the cabin, he felt an odd sense of farewell, as if he were leaving behind a world that had long since faded into silence. The wind outside howled once more, a gust of cold air rushing through the cracks in the walls, sending shivers down his spine. "Let's skedaddle, Roger," he said, moving toward the door. "We've got a grove to find and some ghosts to chase." Stepping outside, Bill was greeted by the vast expanse of the frontier, the sun beginning its descent toward the horizon, painting the sky with hues of orange and purple. He took a deep breath of the cool evening air, feeling the weight of the locket in his pocket, a tangible promise of answers waiting to be uncovered. Roger bounded ahead, nose to the ground, guiding Bill as they navigated the rugged terrain. They followed the nearby riverbank, the sound of the water rushing over rocks, a comforting presence in the stillness of the encroaching twilight. The grove was said to be a sacred place, a sanctuary where the couple had once found solace. As they approached the grove, a palpable tension filled the air. The trees loomed like sentinels, their twisted branches forming eerie silhouettes against the dusky sky. Bill felt a shiver run down his spine, an inexplicable awareness that something watched them from the shadows. "Stay sharp, Roger," he whispered, his voice low but steady. "We ain't alone out here." Roger, ever vigilant, stopped abruptly, his ears perked, scanning the grove with a knowing intensity. Bill followed his gaze, eyes narrowing at the dense underbrush where the shadows seemed to dance and flicker. "What do you see, boy?" he murmured, hand resting on the grip of his revolver, heart racing with a mix of excitement and trepidation. Just then, a low rustle echoed from within the grove, sending a flock of birds fluttering into the sky. "What in tarnation was that?" Bill asked, eyes widening. The tension thickened, and Bill stepped forward, every instinct telling him to proceed with caution. "Whatever it is, I reckon it's time to find out," he said, feeling the pulse of the mystery quicken around him. With Roger at his side, he plunged into the grove, ready to uncover whatever awaited them in the shadows. Bill moved cautiously into the grove, the air thickening with an otherworldly presence that seemed to whisper secrets just beyond reach. The trees stood like ancient guardians, their gnarled branches twisting overhead, casting a patchwork of shadows on the ground. The light from the setting sun filtered through the leaves, creating a mosaic of fiery oranges and deep purples that danced across the forest floor. Roger remained alert, his nose twitching as he sniffed the air, his ears flicking at every sound. Bill could feel the dog's instincts guiding him, an unspoken communication that spoke of the deep bond they shared. "Easy, boy," he murmured, keeping his voice low and steady. "We're just looking for answers." As they ventured deeper, the rustling sound returned, more pronounced this time, like the whisper of a ghost carried on the wind. Bill's heart raced. He scanned the underbrush, searching for the source. "Could be just a squirrel or something," he said, attempting to reassure himself. Yet, something in the back of his mind niggled, suggesting that this was no ordinary woodland creature. With slow, deliberate movements, Bill knelt to inspect the ground, hoping to find some clue that might shed light on the mystery surrounding the grove. The earth was soft and damp, and he could make out a series of footprints leading deeper into the shadows. Footprints that appeared too large to belong to a small animal, but too delicate for a human's. He traced the path with his finger, frowning in thought. What in the blazes could have made these tracks? He pondered aloud, glancing at Roger, who had taken a cautious step back, his body tense. Bill stood, brushing the dirt from his knees, when a faint glimmer caught his eye just beyond a thicket of bushes. He moved closer, parting the branches gently, revealing a small clearing bathed in ethereal light. In the center lay an old stone well, the rocks worn smooth by time and the elements. Vines snaked around its base, and wildflowers sprouted defiantly from the cracks. "Well, ain't this a sight?" he muttered, stepping into the clearing. Roger darted ahead, sniffing around the well with renewed vigor. Bill approached cautiously, peering into the dark opening, the depths seemingly endless. "I reckon this ain't just any old well," he said, feeling a shiver crawl up his spine. The air felt charged with energy, as if the well held memories, echoes of laughter, sorrow, and perhaps even secrets long buried. He turned to Roger, who was now fixated on something just beyond the edge of the clearing. "What is it, boy?" Bill asked, following the dog's gaze. Roger barked softly, tail wagging, but there was an urgency in his demeanor. "Go on, show me," Bill encouraged. With a determined leap, Roger bounded toward the underbrush, nosing through the leaves until he unearthed a weathered, leather-bound book, its pages yellowed and brittle. Bill approached carefully, heart pounding with anticipation. He knelt down to retrieve it, brushing off the dirt and twigs. "Well, I'll be," he said, opening the book with a creak, the smell of old paper wafting up to greet him. Inside were sketches and notes, drawings of the very grove they stood in, along with strange symbols that seemed to pulse with a life of their own. "What in tarnation?" Bill murmured, studying the illustrations. There were images of the couple from the locket, their faces drawn with a delicate hand, and beside them sketches of the well surrounded by ethereal lights, as if the grove itself was alive with magic. "Roger, look at this!" Bill exclaimed, excitement bubbling within him. These folks must have known something we don't. As he flipped through the pages, one particular drawing caught his eye, a detailed map of the grove, marked with a location not far from where they stood. A small X indicated a spot further in, with the words, "The Heart of the Grove," scrawled beneath it in elegant cursive. "Looks like we got ourselves a treasure map, partner," Bill said, his voice low but filled with wonder. He tucked the book under his arm, the weight of it promising revelations yet to come. "Let's see where this leads us." With renewed purpose, Bill followed the map, Roger leading the way, his instinct sharper than ever. They wove through the thickening shadows, the sun sinking lower on the horizon, casting long, eerie shapes that danced between the trees. Bill could feel the air around them growing colder, a chill that seeped into his bones, as if the very spirits of the grove were guiding them towards something momentous. Then, without warning, a howl broke the silence, a mournful sound that echoed through the trees. Bill halted, heart racing, his grip tightening around the book. "What in the name of all that's holy was that?" he breathed, eyes wide. Roger growled low in his throat, muscles coiled, ready for whatever might come next. Bill scanned the grove, every instinct screaming at him to be wary. "We might be in for more than we bargained for," he murmured, taking a steadying breath. "But I'll be darned if I turn back now." With Roger by his side, he pressed onward, the path ahead shrouded in mystery, the howl still resonating in his ears as they ventured deeper into the heart of the grove, the locket in his pocket, a silent promise of the truths waiting to be uncovered. As Bill pressed deeper into the grove, the twilight thickened like molasses, and the shadows deepened with an unsettling weight. The trees stood tall and gnarled, their branches clawing at the sky like skeletal fingers, and the underbrush rustled ominously, as though hiding secrets just out of reach. Roger stayed close, ears perked and nostrils flaring, sensing the electric pulse of the air around them. Bill squinted into the dimness, the map clutched tightly in one hand. "The heart of the grove, huh?" he muttered to himself, the words tasting like a prayer or perhaps a curse. He recalled the sketches from the book, the way the well was depicted radiating light, a beacon in the dark. "Ain't nothing in this world free, and I reckon whatever's hiding out here ain't looking for company." The howl still echoed in his mind, a haunting melody that prickled the back of his neck. He glanced at Roger, who was now sniffing the air with a fervor that suggested something was amiss. "What is it, boy?" Bill whispered, crouching to get a better look at the ground. The last thing he needed was to stumble into something he didn't understand. Roger's keen instincts kicked in as he moved cautiously forward, his eyes darting about. Bill followed suit, trying to match the dog's careful pace. Just then, Roger froze, nose to the ground, tail stiff as a board. "What do you smell?" Bill asked, his voice barely a whisper. It was as if the very earth beneath them was holding its breath. Bill leaned down, inspecting the ground where Roger stood, and noticed a trail of broken twigs and crushed leaves leading further into the grove. "Looks like something was here, and not too long ago," he said, marking the direction on the map. "Might be that howl came from whatever made these tracks." He glanced at Roger, who was still locked in a state of alert. "You ready to keep going, partner?" With a soft bark, Roger took the lead again, and Bill followed, heart pounding with the thrill of discovery. They navigated through the tangled underbrush, the distant chirping of crickets punctuating the eerie quiet. Bill could feel the weight of the moment pressing down on him, a sense of something watching from the shadows. Minutes stretched into what felt like hours as they wound deeper into the grove. Finally, they stumbled upon a clearing that was distinctly different from the one they'd left behind. The air felt charged, vibrating with a low hum that sent a shiver down Bill's spine. In the center of the clearing stood an ancient tree, its trunk wider than a wagon wheel and its roots sprawling like the fingers of a giant, reaching deep into the earth. "Now that's a tree with some stories to tell," Bill said, awe creeping into his voice. The bark was thick and knotted, and strange carvings adorned its surface, symbols that mirrored the ones in the leather-bound book. Could this be what the folks were talking about? Roger circled the tree, sniffing intently, and then suddenly stopped, ears perked high. Bill watched as the dog's gaze fixated on a hollow at the base of the tree, hidden beneath a tangle of roots. "What have you got there, boy?" he asked, heart racing at the thought of more secrets waiting to be uncovered. Bill knelt beside Roger, peering into the hollow. "Looks like a tight fit," he said, reaching cautiously into the dark crevice. His fingers brushed against something cool and smooth, and he pulled out a small, ornately carved box, its surface shimmering with a strange light. It was no bigger than a man's palm, yet it felt heavy with promise. "Good dog," he praised, his heart thrumming with excitement. The carvings on the box mirrored the symbols on the tree, and in the book, a thread woven through time. "What do you reckon this could hold?" Bill opened the box carefully, its hinges creaking like old bones. Inside lay a collection of small, polished stones, each one glowing faintly with a different hue: emerald green, deep ocean blue, fiery red. "Well, I'll be," he breathed, awe swelling in his chest. "What are these?" Roger sniffed the box, his tail wagging cautiously as if he sensed the power of the stones. Bill held one up to the fading light, and as he did, he felt a warmth radiating from it, a pulse that seemed to sync with his own heartbeat. "I've seen plenty of rocks in my day, but never any like this," he muttered. "Could these be what the old-timers were searching for?" Just then, the air shifted, a gust of wind whipping through the grove, rustling the leaves like whispers. Bill felt the hairs on the back of his neck stand up. "Something's coming," he said, his voice low and steady. Roger's body went taut, a growl rumbling deep within his throat, ready for whatever darkness might approach. "Time to make our move," Bill decided, tucking the box securely under his arm, the stone's warmth a comfort against the chill creeping in. He stood tall, scanning the edges of the clearing, senses heightened, aware that whatever magic lay in this grove was not meant for the faint-hearted. "Let's find out what this place is truly guarding," he murmured, stepping forward with Roger by his side, the unknown stretching ahead like an unwritten page, waiting for their tale to unfold. The shadows deepened, but with each step, Bill felt the fire of discovery igniting within him, driving him onward into the heart of the mystery that awaited. The wind picked up again, swirling around the clearing with a ghostly whisper, urging Bill and Roger forward. The sun had dipped low on the horizon, casting long shadows that danced like specters among the trees. Each step Bill took felt like a step deeper into a world not his own, where the air thrummed with ancient magic and the weight of untold stories. "Let's keep our wits about us, partner," Bill murmured to Roger, who remained vigilant, his ears swiveling to catch every sound in the twilight. The dog was more than just a companion. He was a sentinel, alert to the unseen. Bill couldn't help but feel a swell of gratitude for the loyal creature at his side. As they moved deeper into the grove, Bill examined the box he had found. It was crafted from dark wood, intricately etched with swirling patterns that glinted in the fading light. "There's something special about this here box," he said, turning it over in his hands. "Could be a key to unlocking whatever this place is all about." Roger paused, sniffing the air as if trying to decipher a scent that lingered just out of reach. Bill watched the dog's posture, the way his muscles tensed and relaxed, and felt a jolt of instinctive respect for the creature's intuition. "You sense something, boy?" he asked. With a soft bark, Roger darted ahead, his nose low to the ground. Following an invisible thread through the underbrush, Bill hurried after him, careful to avoid the snaking roots that seemed to writhe beneath his feet. They soon came upon another clearing, this one much smaller, encircled by rocks that stood like sentinels. In the center lay a weathered stone altar, its surface marked with similar symbols as those on the box and the ancient tree. Bill felt the pulse of energy thrum through the air, stronger than before. "A sacrificial altar, maybe," he mused, recalling the tales he'd heard from old-timers at the saloon. "Or a place for rituals. Folks used to gather round stones like this for some powerful magic." Roger sniffed the altar, his tail stilling, and then looked up at Bill, as if seeking permission. "Go on, boy," Bill encouraged. "What's got your nose all twitchy?" The dog took a step back, then barked sharply, a warning echoing through the stillness. Bill felt a chill skitter down his spine. "What is it?" He scanned the trees surrounding them, heart racing. Just then, the box in Bill's hands pulsed with warmth, and he felt compelled to place it on the altar. "This might just be what we need," he said, setting it down gently. As the box touched the stone surface, a low hum began to resonate, vibrating through the air like a distant drumbeat. Roger whined softly, his gaze darting toward the tree line. Bill's heart raced. "Stay close, boy," he commanded, feeling the hairs on the back of his neck prickle. Before Bill could take a breath, a figure emerged from the shadows, stepping into the twilight. It was a tall man, cloaked in a tattered duster, his face obscured by a wide-brimmed hat. The figure's presence seemed to command the very air around them, a palpable tension crackling like the first hint of a summer storm. "Who are you?" Bill called out, keeping his voice steady despite the surge of fear clawing at him. The man stepped forward, revealing sharp features and eyes that glinted with an unnatural light. "I could ask the same of you, wanderer," he said, his voice smooth as silk, but laced with an edge that sent a shiver down Bill's spine. "You've stumbled upon something that doesn't belong to you." "I reckon it belongs to whoever found it," Bill replied, steeling himself. "And that would be me and my dog. We ain't looking for trouble, but we won't shy away from it neither." The stranger's lips curled into a smirk, revealing a row of teeth that glimmered unnaturally in the twilight. "Oh, I think trouble has found you just fine," he said, glancing at the altar. "That box has been waiting for a new keeper. You may not comprehend its power, but the spirits that dwell here do." Bill's heart raced as the man stepped closer, and Roger instinctively moved in front of Bill, growling low in his throat. "You best step back," Bill warned, feeling the energy of the stones thrumming beneath his fingertips. The man laughed, a sound like wind rattling through dead leaves. "You think you can protect yourself with a mutt and a box of trinkets?" He waved a hand dismissively. "You've no idea what you're dealing with, cowboy." With that, the air around them thickened, a palpable tension rising, as if the very shadows were creeping closer, drawn by the stranger's presence. Bill's grip tightened on the box, and he felt the stones within pulse in response, their energy intertwining with his resolve. "Maybe I don't," he said, determination settling in his chest like iron. "But I reckon I'll find out one way or another." The stranger's eyes narrowed, and for a heartbeat the world seemed to hold its breath, the clearing alive with unseen forces. Bill felt Roger's body tense beside him, ready to spring into action, and he knew they were standing on the precipice of a choice that could change everything. "Let's see what you're made of, cowboy," the man said, stepping back into the shadows, his laughter echoing like a distant thunderclap, leaving Bill and Roger standing resolute at the altar, ready to confront the mystery that awaited them. The shadows lingered heavy and oppressive, curling around Bill and Roger as they stood by the altar, the air thick with unspoken threats and untold secrets. Bill felt the weight of the box in his hands, a connection to something greater than himself, something that had been buried beneath layers of time and earth. He could almost hear the whispers of the past, urging him to unlock its mysteries. "Come on, Roger," he said, determination hardening his voice. "Let's take a gander at this thing." He moved closer to the altar, running his fingers over the intricate symbols etched into the stone. Each groove felt alive beneath his touch, vibrating with the energy of ages gone by. Roger, ever watchful, kept his ears perked and his nose to the ground, sniffing for anything out of the ordinary. The dog circled the altar, his keen instincts attuned to the subtle shifts in the air, the crackling tension that hinted at unseen forces at play. Bill couldn't help but admire the loyalty and intelligence of his companion. "You sense something, don't you, boy?" he murmured, and Roger paused, looking up with a knowing gaze that stirred something deep within Bill. With a deep breath, he knelt beside the box, placing it gently on the altar. The low hum intensified, resonating through his bones as if the very earth was calling out. He reached for the latch, fingers trembling with anticipation, and opened it slowly, revealing its contents, an assortment of trinkets, stones, and aged parchment. Each item held a story, a memory, and perhaps a key to the enigma that surrounded them. "Now what do we have here?" Bill muttered, sifting through the items. There were small figures carved from bone, their forms twisted and contorted, and stones that sparkled with an ethereal glow, as if holding the light of distant stars. But it was the parchment that caught his eye, old and brittle, covered in more of those strange symbols. "Let's take a look," he whispered, carefully unfolding the parchment, feeling the coolness of the paper beneath his fingers. The symbols danced before him, and though he couldn't decipher their meaning, he sensed a rhythm to them, a pulse that seemed to sync with the thrum of the altar. Roger huffed beside him, drawing Bill's attention. The dog had stopped pacing and was staring intently at the tree line, a low growl rumbling in his throat. Bill's heart raced again, and he turned to follow Roger's gaze, scanning the darkening woods. "I reckon we ain't alone after all," he said, his voice dropping to a whisper. The chill in the air deepened, the shadows lengthening as twilight settled. Suddenly, a rustling sound echoed from the bushes, sending Roger into a protective stance. Hackles raised. "Easy, boy," Bill soothed, his eyes narrowing as he squinted into the gloom. "Show yourself." From the underbrush emerged a small creature, a fox, its fur gleaming like copper in the fading light. It paused, ears perked, before darting off into the shadows. Bill let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. "Just a critter," he chuckled softly. But the unease lingered, the forest holding its breath, as if waiting for something to unfold. He turned back to the box, heart still racing, and decided to examine the trinkets more closely. One of the small figures caught his attention, a carved effigy, oddly familiar, depicting a rider on horseback, with a strange symbol on the rider's cloak. "What in tarnation?" Bill whispered, remembering the tales of a ghostly cowboy who roamed these parts, said to protect the land from evildoers. Roger whined, nudging Bill's hand, and he glanced down at his loyal companion. "You think this means something, don't you?" he asked. The dog's eyes were wide, reflecting the glimmering energy of the altar, as if sensing the connection between the past and present. Bill pocketed the effigy, feeling a surge of purpose. "If this is linked to that ghost story, then maybe it can help us figure out what that stranger wanted. We need to find the truth, Roger. It could be the key to understanding why we're here." With renewed resolve, he gathered the remaining trinkets, placing them back into the box. As he did, the ground beneath them trembled slightly, a subtle quake that made the air hum. Bill exchanged a glance with Roger, both of them acutely aware that the night was drawing in fast, and with it, the dangers that lurked in the dark. "Let's get back to town before we start seeing spirits," he said, trying to inject a bit of humor into the tension that surrounded them. Roger barked softly, tail wagging cautiously, and together they retreated from the clearing, the box safely tucked under Bill's arm. As they made their way back through the woods, the trees seemed to close in around them, whispers swirling in the wind, beckoning him to stay, to uncover more. But Bill knew that some mysteries were best left for another day. The chill in the air was a reminder of the presence that lingered, and the secrets that still awaited revelation. Night fell heavy and dark, the stars flickering above like distant lanterns, guiding them home. With each step, Bill's heart beat in time with the pulse of the land, and he couldn't shake the feeling that they were on the cusp of something monumental, a journey that would lead them far beyond the dusty trails and into the heart of legends long forgotten. And as they reached the edge of the woods, he felt an unshakable certainty that the adventure was only just beginning. The moon hung low and full, casting an ethereal glow across the landscape as Bill and Roger emerged from the dense thicket of trees. The air was thick with the scent of pine and damp earth, while the night creatures stirred in the underbrush, their calls blending into a haunting melody that echoed through the valley. Bill's heart raced with anticipation, and he could almost taste the thrill of the unknown. "Let's get moving, Roger," he said, glancing down at his faithful dog, who remained vigilant, ears perked and nose twitching at every sound. "We've got some investigating to do." As they ambled along the dirt path back to town, Bill's thoughts swirled around the strange artifacts they had uncovered. The carving of the ghostly cowboy nagged at him, and he could almost hear the legends his father had shared with him as a boy. Old tales of a spectral rider who appeared in times of need, guiding lost souls and protecting the innocent from the darkness that threatened to engulf the frontier. Could it be that the effigy he found was a talisman of sorts? A key to calling upon this legendary figure? Roger stopped suddenly, his body tense as he sniffed the air, a low growl rumbling deep in his throat. Bill's instincts kicked in, and he halted in his tracks, scanning the surroundings. "What is it, boy?" he asked, crouching down to Roger's level. The dog's gaze was fixed on a shadow that danced in the moonlight, just beyond the edge of the path. Bill squinted, his heart thumping in his chest. "I reckon we ain't alone again," he murmured, the hairs on the back of his neck prickling. "Stay close." As he edged toward the shadow, he felt a knot tightening in his gut. The night seemed to thicken, the air growing heavier with every step. Finally, the shape became clear, a weathered old sign half buried in the underbrush, bearing the faded name of a long-abandoned homestead. "The Morrow Place," he read aloud, brushing the dirt from its surface. "Used to be a bustling ranch back in the day. Folks said it went under real quick after a string of bad luck." He looked around, a chill creeping down his spine. "Might be worth a look, eh?" He was met with Roger's approving whine, and Bill nodded. "Let's see if we can find something that'll shed some light on the matter." They stepped off the path, making their way toward the ghostly remains of the Morrow Place, the moonlight revealing crumbling walls and a roof that sagged like an old man's back. Bill felt an odd sense of dread, mixed with curiosity as they approached, the air alive with the echo of history. "I wonder if there's still some remnants of what happened here," he mused, brushing his hand against the rough timber. Inside, the air was stale, filled with the scent of decay. Dust motes danced in the pale moonlight, filtering through broken windows, and the silence was punctuated only by the occasional creak of the old structure. Bill moved cautiously, feeling as if he were intruding upon a sacred space. "Stay alert, Roger," he whispered, aware of the potential for danger lurking in the shadows. As he explored the remnants of what was once a lively home, something caught his eye, a glint of metal partially buried beneath the floorboards. With a little effort, he pried it loose, revealing an ornate, rusted pocket watch. The intricate design was still visible, though time had taken its toll. "Well, ain't you a sight for sore eyes?" he remarked, turning the watch over in his palm. Roger sniffed around, his ears twitching as he stepped closer to Bill. "You smell something?" Bill asked, watching as the dog's nose twitched in a frenzy. With a sudden urgency, Roger bolted to a corner of the room, scratching at the wall, which appeared to be in slightly better condition than the rest of the cabin. "What is it, boy?" Bill followed, his heart pounding. He knelt beside Roger, and together they examined the wall more closely. It was there that he noticed a peculiar marking, much like the symbols from the parchment, etched into the wooden beams. "Now what in tarnation?" Bill muttered, tracing the symbols with his fingers. They were faint but recognizable, and as he pressed against them, a low rumble reverberated through the structure. The floor beneath them trembled slightly, a reminder of the spirits that might still linger in this desolate place. "Let's take a step back," he warned, standing up and putting the pocket watch safely in his coat pocket. Roger growled again, and Bill felt a surge of energy fill the room. "I reckon it's time we get out of here." Just as they turned to leave, a gust of wind whipped through the broken windows, swirling dust and debris around them, and Bill's heart raced. Shadows flickered in the corners of his vision, and he could almost hear whispers curling through the air, beckoning him to stay. "This ain't right," he said, his voice steady despite the fear gnawing at him. "Let's hightail it back before we summon something we can't handle." Roger barked affirmatively, and together they made their way out of the Morrow Place, the night wrapping around them like a heavy blanket. As they stepped back onto the path, Bill felt the weight of the watch in his pocket, a tangible connection to the mysteries of the past. They hurried along, the night air cool against their skin. But Bill couldn't shake the feeling that something had awakened within the woods, something ancient that had been waiting for the right moment to reveal itself. As they walked, he cast a glance over his shoulder, half expecting to see the ghostly figure of the cowboy materializing from the shadows, ready to lead them further into a story that was far from over. "Looks like we got ourselves a real puzzle, Roger," he said softly, determination coursing through his veins. "And I reckon we're just getting started." Bill kept his pace brisk, heart still thrumming in his chest, the echoes of that strange energy still crackling in the air like a distant storm. Roger trotted beside him, his ears flicking back and forth, ever alert to the world around them. As they reached the edge of the clearing, the moonlight glimmered off the rustling grass, casting long shadows that danced eerily under the pale glow. "Let's head back to town, boy," Bill said, glancing up at the vast sky, where stars twinkled like scattered diamonds. "We got some thinking to do." The thought of sharing the day's discoveries with old Jed at the saloon made his heart race, not from excitement, but from an instinctual wariness of the unknown. Jed had a way of spinning tales that could chill the bone, and this one might just be worth a dozen stories. As they walked, Bill's mind was a whirlwind of possibilities. That pocket watch, with its ornate craftsmanship, had to mean something. He could almost feel the weight of the past pressing down on him. Could be this belonged to one of them Morrow folks, he pondered aloud, a habit he'd picked up over years of solitude. Maybe even the one who brought the bad luck upon him. Roger paused, his nose sniffing the air with intent, as if he were trying to piece together a scent that danced just out of reach. "What is it, boy?" Bill asked, coming to a halt. "You catch a whiff of something unusual?" With a sharp bark, Roger darted ahead, leading Bill off the main trail and toward a thicket of trees that loomed ominously in the dark. Bill followed closely, a mix of curiosity and caution swelling in his chest. "This better not be another wild goose chase," he muttered under his breath. "But I reckon I owe it to the past to see what's what." As they moved deeper into the thicket, the sounds of the night transformed. The chirping crickets seemed to hush, replaced by an unsettling silence. Bill felt the hairs on the back of his neck rise. "Something's off, Roger," he said, scanning the surroundings. "Keep your wits about you." They came upon a clearing where the moonlight spilled like silver paint onto the ground, illuminating an old gnarled tree with roots that twisted like the hands of time. Something about the tree seemed to call out to him, and before he could think better of it, he approached it, Roger at his side, eyes wide and watchful. Beneath the tree, the ground appeared disturbed, as if it had been recently unearthed. Bill knelt down, brushing away the loose dirt with his fingers. The moonlight caught a glint of something half-buried, a small, leather-bound journal, frayed and worn, the edges crumbling like the memories it held. "What have we here?" he whispered, lifting it carefully. The journal's cover was embossed with the same symbols he had seen in the Morrow place. His breath caught in his throat as he opened it, revealing pages filled with elegant, swirling handwriting. The ink had faded, but the words were still legible. Bill squinted, reading the first few lines. "July 5th, 1882. Accursed land, they say, where shadows dance and the past is never truly buried." "Cursed," Bill murmured, glancing at Roger, whose ears perked up, sensing the tension in the air. "Seems like this place has more stories than I bargained for." He turned the pages gingerly, skimming through notes and sketches of the Morrow family, their struggles and strange occurrences that had plagued them, disappearances, eerie lights in the woods, and whispers that beckoned at dusk. "Now this is getting downright peculiar," Bill muttered, his heart racing as he pieced together the narrative. The journal hinted at a hidden treasure, a secret that had been lost to time, but it came with a warning. Those who seek the light may find themselves ensnared by the shadows. "Sounds like the kind of trouble we don't need," he told Roger, who responded with a low growl, his instincts attuned to the unknown. Bill stood up, clutching the journal tightly. "We best be heading back, but we ain't done yet." The chilling breeze rustled the leaves, and for a fleeting moment, Bill thought he caught sight of a figure flitting among the shadows. His heart thumped in his chest as he squinted, but it was gone as quickly as it had appeared. "Did you see that, Roger?" he asked, though he knew the dog had sensed it too. "Let's not stick around to find out what else might be lurking in these woods," Bill urged, keeping a steady eye on the darkness as they retraced their steps. The weight of the journal and the pocket watch in his pockets felt like an anchor, holding him to the mysteries that awaited further exploration. As they made their way back toward the safety of the trail, Bill felt a strange resolve settle in his bones. He knew the Morrow place was far from just a ghost story. It was a gateway to something deeper, a tale that beckoned him to uncover the truth behind the shadows that had haunted the land. Once they reached the main path, the familiar sight of the dusty road ahead comforted him, but the night was far from over. The flickering lights of town glimmered in the distance like fireflies, but Bill could hardly shake the feeling that the spirits of the past had stirred and were watching. "Time to share this with Jed," he said, determination in his voice. "He might know more about this here mystery than he lets on." With Roger trotting faithfully beside him, they ventured toward town, the air thick with anticipation. Bill felt the weight of history pressing upon him, and he knew that the road ahead was fraught with uncertainties, but he was ready. They had begun to unravel a story that had long been buried, and as the moon cast its silvery glow upon them, they marched forward into the unknown, eager to unveil the truth that lay hidden within the darkened corners of their frontier world. As Bill and Roger made their way toward town, the dust rising beneath their boots mingled with the sharp scent of pine and the crisp coolness of the night air. Stars twinkled overhead, distant and indifferent, while the moon cast elongated shadows that danced alongside them. Bill felt a mix of excitement and trepidation, the journal tucked safely under his arm. Each step forward was a step deeper into the tangled web of the Morrow family's secrets. "Did you ever think we'd be sniffing around a haunted place, partner?" Bill mused aloud, casting a sidelong glance at Roger, who kept his nose to the ground, sniffing at the grass and dirt as if trying to catch the faintest whiff of the past. "I reckon this could be the start of something mighty strange." Roger paused, ears twitching as he picked up a sound that sent a shiver down Bill's spine, a distant howl perhaps from a coyote, but it held an eerie quality, echoing through the stillness of the night. "Easy, boy," Bill said, reaching down to scratch behind the dog's ears. "You keep your eyes peeled. I ain't ready for no surprises tonight." They rounded a bend in the road, and the faint glow of lanterns from the saloon and general store flickered like beacons of safety. Bill quickened his pace, eager to share his discovery with Jed. The old coot was a wealth of knowledge about the town's history, and if anyone could help him make sense of the journal, it was him. As they entered the town, Bill's heart raced with the thrill of the hunt. He paused at the edge of the main street, where the cobblestones glimmered under the moonlight, and the sound of laughter and clinking glasses wafted from the saloon. "Let's go find that old goat," he said, striding forward with Roger at his heel. The saloon door swung open with a creak, and a gust of warm air greeted him, carrying the scent of whiskey and the sweet smoke of burning tobacco. The interior was dimly lit, shadows flitting across the walls as patrons engaged in raucous conversation. Bill's eyes quickly found Jed, hunched over the bar, a glass of whiskey in front of him, and a half-finished game of cards scattered on the table. "Jed!" Bill called, raising a hand to catch his attention. The old man looked up, his weathered face breaking into a grin that revealed a few missing teeth. "Bill, looking like you just rode in from the wilds. What's got you all stirred up?" Jed's voice was gravelly, yet warm, as he waved Bill over. "Mind if I bend your ear for a spell?" Bill asked, taking a seat next to him. Roger settled at his feet, ever watchful. "Long as you ain't selling me snake oil, I'm all ears," Jed replied with a chuckle, taking a swig from his glass. "You're looking a mite serious for a night out." Bill pulled the journal from beneath his arm, careful not to spill any of the dust that clung to it. "I found this out by the Morrow place. It's got something to do with the family and their cursed land," Jed interrupted, his eyes narrowing with intrigue. "Now that's a tale I've heard whispered over many a drink. What's it say?" Bill opened the journal to the first few pages, the pages crackling softly in the quiet bar. He began to read aloud, his voice low but steady, recounting the tale of the Morrow family and the strange happenings that had plagued them. As he spoke, he noticed Jed's expression shift, shadows of concern crossing his features. "Cursed indeed," Jed said, leaning closer. "Folks around here talk about lights in the woods and shadows that don't belong to no man. I always thought it was just stories to scare the young'uns, but if you found this journal, maybe there's more to it than just talk." Bill nodded, feeling the weight of the words. "There's mention of a treasure hidden in those woods, but it says, 'Those who seek the light may find themselves ensnared by the shadows.' What do you reckon that means?" Jed stroked his chin, deep in thought. "Could be a warning or a truth about the past. Folks who went looking for the Morrow's fortune might have gotten more than they bargained for. Not all treasures are gold, my friend." Roger shifted at Bill's feet, sensing the tension in the air. He let out a soft growl, his eyes fixed on the far corner of the saloon, where shadows gathered like secrets waiting to be uncovered. Bill followed his gaze, but nothing stirred. "Maybe we ought to go back and look around," Bill said, excitement creeping into his voice. "If there's a treasure, it's worth checking out. And if there's danger, I reckon we best be ready for it." "You're a bold one, I'll give you that," Jed replied, raising an eyebrow. "But you ain't alone in this. I know a thing or two about those woods, and I've got my own curiosity piqued." He leaned back, a glint of mischief in his eyes. "Count me in, partner." Bill's heart raced at the thought of an ally in the venture ahead. "We'll need supplies. Flashlights, rope, maybe even a map. It ain't no ordinary stroll in the woods." "Then it's settled," Jed said, slapping the bar with his hand. "We'll gather what we need come morning, and you, young man, should steer clear of any shadows that might be lurking. This ain't no fairy tale." With the journal still open, Bill glanced at the pages once more, a sense of purpose swelling within him. "Let's unravel this mystery before it unravels us," he said, determination lacing his words. As the night wore on, laughter and music filled the saloon, but Bill felt the pulse of something deeper echoing in the background. The Morrow place waited, its secrets buried beneath the earth, and he knew their journey had only just begun. The shadows whispered around him, alive with the stories of the past, and as he left the warmth of the saloon behind, he felt their call more strongly than ever. Together with Roger and Jed, he would face whatever lay ahead, ready to unearth the truth hidden in the darkened corners of the frontier. The first light of dawn broke over the horizon, casting a golden hue across the wide expanse of the frontier. Bill stirred from his restless sleep, the images of shadows and whispered secrets still flickering in his mind like the dying embers of a fire. He rose from his bedroll, stretching the stiffness from his limbs, and glanced toward Roger, who lay curled up by the door, ears perked and alert. "Rise and shine, partner," Bill said, ruffling the dog's fur. "We got ourselves a treasure hunt to prepare for." Roger wagged his tail, as if understanding the weight of the day ahead. Bill packed his meager belongings and stepped outside, inhaling the crisp morning air that tasted of pine and promise. The sun was just beginning to rise, illuminating the rugged landscape that surrounded him. Mountains loomed in the distance, and the scent of sagebrush wafted through the cool breeze. A sense of purpose thrummed in his chest as he set off toward town, where Jed was likely already stirring. The saloon had transformed overnight, its wooden facade glowing in the soft light. As Bill approached, he saw Jed leaning against the bar, a cup of coffee in hand and a look of determination etched on his face. "Thought I'd beat you to the punch," Jed said, his voice steady. "I got us a couple of lanterns, some rope, and a map I borrowed from old Tom. Might just save our skins if things get hairy." "Good thinking, Jed," Bill replied, accepting a steaming cup of coffee from the old man. "We'll need every tool we can muster. This hunt ain't no ordinary jaunt." And as they gathered supplies, the air buzzed with anticipation, and the townsfolk, still sleepy-eyed, exchanged glances filled with curiosity. Word had spread fast about the journal and the Morrow family's lore, and whispers about the cursed woods hung like a fog over the town. "Folks are talking," Jed observed, eyeing a pair of men at a nearby table. Best we keep our plans close to our chests. Don't need no extra ears prying into our business." Bill nodded, his mind racing with thoughts of the Morrow place. "I reckon we should head out right after we finish up here. The sooner we start, the sooner we find out what's really going on." With their supplies packed and a plan in motion, Bill and Jed mounted their horses and set off, Roger trotting alongside, his sharp eyes scanning the underbrush for any signs of life. As they rode, the landscape began to shift, the open plains giving way to thick woods that loomed ahead, dark and mysterious. "Keep your wits about you," Jed called, his voice raised over the sound of hooves on dirt. "This here's where the stories start to get real strange." Bill could feel the tension in the air, a palpable energy that wrapped around them like a thick blanket. The trees stood tall and ancient, their gnarled branches reaching out as if to ensnare any who dared to venture too close. Shadows flitted between the trunks, teasing the corners of Bill's vision, but he shook off the unease that crept along his spine. "Let's stick to the main path," he suggested, guiding his horse deeper into the woods. "If there's treasure to be found, it's bound to be off the beaten trail, but we ought to tread carefully." The deeper they rode, the darker it became, the sunlight struggling to penetrate the canopy overhead. Roger trotted ahead, occasionally stopping to sniff the air, his instincts sharp as a tack. Suddenly he paused, ears erect and tail stiff, as if sensing something just beyond the reach of human understanding. "What is it, boy?" Bill asked, his heart quickening. "What do you see?" Roger growled low in his throat, a warning that sent a shiver through Bill. He dismounted and crept forward, Jed following closely, each step taken with the careful precision of a hunter. They reached a clearing where the trees parted, revealing a dilapidated cabin that had clearly seen better days. Its windows were boarded, and a sense of foreboding hung thick in the air. "Now that's peculiar," Jed murmured, glancing at the cabin. "I didn't know there was a place like this out here. Might be worth a look. Let's approach with caution," Bill replied, scanning the area. "We don't know what's inside or if anyone or anything might be lurking about." They moved closer, Roger trailing just behind them, his instincts still on high alert. As they reached the front door, Bill noticed strange symbols carved into the wood, their meaning lost to time, but undeniably unsettling. "Looks like the folks who lived here had a thing for the odd," Jed commented, tracing a finger over one of the carvings. "Could be connected to the Morrow family." "Let's see what's inside," Bill said, pushing the door ajar. It creaked on its hinges, the sound echoing like a warning through the woods. Together they stepped inside, the air thick with the scent of damp earth and decay. Dust motes floated in the dim light that filtered through cracks in the boarded windows. The interior was a hodgepodge of old furniture, a table scarred by time, and remnants of a life long abandoned. But it was the corner that caught Bill's eye, a small weathered trunk, half hidden beneath a tattered blanket. "Over here," he called, moving toward it. As he knelt beside the trunk, Roger whined softly, his gaze fixed on the dark corners of the room, as if sensing something ominous lurking just out of sight. "Careful, Bill," Jed warned, his voice low. "Could be more than you bargained for." With a deep breath, Bill lifted the lid, the hinges protesting with a mournful groan. Inside, he found an array of items. A dusty lantern, a faded photograph of a family that looked eerily familiar, and, nestled at the bottom, a small leather pouch. His heart raced as he reached for it, feeling the weight of destiny in his hands. "Let's see what secrets you hold," he murmured, untying the drawstring. As he opened the pouch, a glimmer of gold caught the dim light, revealing several gleaming coins and a curious amulet that seemed to pulse with an energy of its own. "What in tarnation?" Jed breathed, leaning closer. "That there looks like it could be the key to the whole mess." As they examined their find, the shadows around them deepened, and the air grew heavy with an unspoken threat. The cabin creaked and groaned as if awakening from a long slumber, and Roger's growl intensified, sending chills down Bill's spine. The secrets of the Morrow family were buried deep, and whatever lay ahead promised to be more than they could handle. "Let's get out of here," Bill said, stuffing the pouch into his pocket. "We don't want to linger where we ain't welcome." With Roger leading the way, they stepped back into the forest, the shadows whispering behind them and the promise of discovery lurking just beyond the trees. As they stepped back into the dappled light of the forest, the oppressive feeling that had settled in the cabin clung to them like a shadow. Bill felt the weight of the leather pouch pressing against his side, and he glanced at Roger, whose nose twitched as he took in the scents swirling around them. The dog's ears perked, and he looked back toward the cabin, as if sensing an unseen presence that lingered in the air. "Easy there, boy," Bill murmured, patting Roger's flank. "Let's not get too jumpy. We ain't seen nothing yet." With that, they turned away from the cabin, but as they made their way back through the underbrush, Bill couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. The woods felt alive with a strange energy, and the low rustle of leaves whispered secrets that danced just beyond their understanding. "Keep your eyes peeled," Jed said, glancing back at the cabin, which now appeared even more sinister in the waning light. "I reckon whatever was in there don't want us snooping around." "I reckon you're right," Bill replied, his voice steady despite the knot of unease in his stomach. "We'll need to figure out what we've got here." He pulled the pouch from his pocket and examined the coins, their surfaces glinting with an otherworldly sheen. "These look like old gold, but what about this amulet?" He held it up, and as the light caught it, the object shimmered with a curious luminescence. It was a simple design, a circle encased in interlocking spirals, yet it radiated a warmth that felt almost alive. Jed squinted, scratching his chin. "I've seen something like that before. Old folk tales from the Morrow family said they were protectors of the lost. Maybe this thing's got a story to tell. Or it's a load of old wives' tales," Bill countered, but his heart quickened at the thought. "Either way, we ought to find out what it means." Roger snorted as if agreeing, and led the way down a narrow path that veered left deeper into the woods. The trees closed in around them, and the underbrush thickened, making the ride more challenging. Bill tightened his grip on the reins, guiding his horse carefully over the uneven ground. "Maybe we should head back to town and ask around," Jed suggested, his voice barely above a whisper as they ventured further into the thicket. "Old man Grayson might know something about the Morrow family and this trinket of yours." "Could be," Bill replied, glancing at the fading light filtering through the trees. "But I'm curious to see if this leads us to something more. If the Morrow name holds power, I want to find out what kind." Suddenly, Roger stopped in his tracks, his body tense and alert. He sniffed the air, tail raised high, a low growl rumbling in his throat. Bill halted his horse, eyes darting around the dense foliage. "What is it, boy?" he asked, feeling a chill creep up his spine. "You smell something?" Before he could finish his question, a rustle came from the nearby thicket, followed by the sound of something heavy moving through the underbrush. Bill's heart raced as he dismounted, nodding to Jed to do the same. "Stay close," he instructed, drawing a breath to steady his nerves. "Whatever it is, we gotta be ready." They moved cautiously toward the sound, Roger leading the way with a low growl reverberating through the stillness. Bill's senses sharpened, and he scanned the shadows between the trees, his instincts honed by years of life on the frontier. As they approached, a figure emerged, stumbling into the clearing, a man, dirty and disheveled, with a wild look in his eyes that spoke of desperation. His clothes hung loosely from his frame, and he clutched something in his hands, his fingers white-knuckled around it. "Help me!" the man croaked, collapsing to his knees. "Please, I'm lost! They're coming for me!" "What in the world?" Jed whispered, glancing at Bill, who stepped forward, his heart racing at the man's words. "Who's coming for you?" Bill demanded, his voice steady but firm. "What's happened?" "The Morrow family," the man gasped, looking up with wild eyes. "They want the amulet. I've seen what they do to those who cross them. You've got to listen to me." Bill exchanged a worried glance with Jed, and Roger stepped protectively in front of them, sensing the tension in the air. "What do you know about the Morrow family?" Bill pressed, stepping closer to the man. "And why do they want the amulet?" "They'll take everything. It's cursed. It's connected to the shadows that haunt this land." The man's breath came in frantic gasps as he struggled to regain his composure. "You need to leave while you can. I tried to warn them, but they wouldn't listen. Now they're lost forever." The air grew thick with an unsettling energy, and Bill felt a chill race down his spine. He thought of the tales told around campfires, the superstitions that spoke of those who delved too deeply into the unknown. "Listen," Bill said slowly. "We've got that amulet, and we mean no harm. But if you know something about it, we need you to be straight with us." The man's eyes flickered with fear and recognition. "You don't understand," he muttered, shaking his head. "It's not just an amulet. It's a beacon for the restless spirits. They will come for you. They will not stop until they reclaim what's theirs." A rustling behind them made Bill's heart race, and he turned, half expecting to see shadows spilling forth from the trees. The woods seemed to thrum with an unseen energy, and Roger growled once more, eyes locked on the darkened thicket. "Time to skedaddle," Jed urged, inching back. "We need to hightail it out of here before this turns into a right mess." But Bill remained rooted to the spot, his mind racing. The weight of the amulet in his pocket felt heavier, the air thickening with dread. Whatever mysteries lay ahead, he knew he could not turn back now, not when they were so close to uncovering the truth. "Stay close," he said firmly, determination surging within him. "We'll figure this out, but we need to keep moving. Let's find out what this cursed amulet can reveal before the shadows claim us." With Roger leading the way, they pressed deeper into the woods, leaving the man behind, his warning echoing in their ears. The forest loomed larger, the shadows darker, as the adventure drew them inexorably toward a fate unknown. The dense underbrush crackled beneath their boots as Bill, Jed, and Roger forged ahead, the ominous woods closing in around them like a shroud. The sun had dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows that danced in the flickering light of the fading day. Each step they took felt like a descent into a deeper mystery, one fraught with the echoes of the man's desperate warning. "Bill, you reckon we're making a mistake?" Jed asked, glancing nervously over his shoulder. The treetops swayed gently in the breeze, the rustle of leaves almost whispering secrets that made the hair on the back of his neck stand on end. "Could be," Bill admitted, his voice low and steady as he led the way. "But we ain't the kind to run from ghosts, are we? Not when we've got a chance to set things right." He felt Roger at his side, the dog's presence a comforting weight against the growing tension. The loyal canine remained alert, his ears pricked and nose twitching as he scanned the surroundings. Bill trusted Roger's instincts. The dog had saved him more than once from trouble in the past. As they pushed deeper into the woods, the path began to narrow, tangled roots and low-hanging branches blocking their way. Bill paused, studying the ground. "Look here," he said, kneeling down to examine the soil. "These tracks ain't ours." Jed squinted, inching closer to see the prints. "Looks like they're from a horse, but something's off. Ain't no rider sitting in the saddle. Could be a ghost horse," Bill mused, a hint of irony lacing his words. "Or just a wild one. Either way, we best keep our wits about us." Roger sniffed the air, his growl growing deeper, a vibration in the silence. Bill felt a shiver crawl up his spine as he looked up, scanning the trees surrounding them. "Let's move," he said, rising to his feet and urging his horse forward. "The amulet is out there somewhere, and I aim to find it." As they continued, the woods seemed to breathe around them, the sound of rustling leaves and snapping twigs creating an unsettling symphony. The fading light painted the trees in hues of violet and blue, shadows stretching like fingers reaching toward them. Bill's heart raced with every step, a mix of excitement and dread weaving through him. Suddenly, Roger stopped dead in his tracks, the hackles on his back raised, his body rigid. Bill followed the dog's gaze to a thick cluster of underbrush where the light barely reached. "What is it, boy?" he whispered, moving cautiously closer. Then he saw it, a glint of metal partially buried in the dirt. "Well, I'll be," he breathed, kneeling to dig it out. The item was small but ornate, its surface marred with age, yet glimmering with an otherworldly shine. He wiped away the dirt, revealing intricate carvings that twisted and turned like the branches overhead. "What did you find?" Jed asked, peering over Bill's shoulder. "This here ain't just any trinket," Bill said, his voice low with awe. "Looks like a key, but I reckon it's more than that. Could be a key to unlocking what's been hidden from us." "Hidden or cursed," Jed muttered, casting a wary glance around. "You're not thinking we ought to keep it, are you?" Bill held the key up to the dying light, studying its markings. "This may lead us to the truth about the Morrow family and that amulet. We gotta see where it fits in the grand puzzle." Roger whined softly, urging them onward, and Bill felt a pull in his gut, as if the key were beckoning him deeper into the woods. "Let's keep moving," he said, slipping the key into his pocket alongside the amulet. "We can't let fear guide us." As they journeyed deeper, the atmosphere thickened, pressing in on them like a heavy fog. The air was thick with the scent of damp earth and wildflowers, but beneath that, Bill sensed something darker, a chill that wrapped around his bones and whispered warnings to his soul. Minutes turned to hours as they pressed on, the trees thickening into a near impenetrable wall. It was then that Roger stopped again, his body tense, staring into a thicket that seemed to pulse with an unnatural energy. Bill felt the hairs on his neck rise as he followed the dog's gaze. "What's got you, boy?" he asked, stepping forward. Before he could comprehend what was happening, the underbrush parted, and a figure stepped into the clearing, a woman, pale as moonlight, with hair cascading like a waterfall of silver. Her eyes glimmered with an otherworldly light, and a ghostly aura surrounded her, flickering like candlelight in the wind. "Leave this place," she cried, her voice a haunting melody that echoed through the trees. "You tread upon sacred ground, where shadows dwell and lost souls linger. The Morrow name carries blood and bone, and it shall not be ignored." Bill's heart thundered in his chest, and he instinctively took a step back, pulling Jed with him. "What do you want with us?" he called, his voice steadier than he felt. "Only to warn," she replied, her gaze piercing into him. "You seek the amulet, but know this, it has a will of its own. The darkness it draws forth will consume you if you do not heed the spirit's call." Jed clutched at Bill's arm, eyes wide with fear, while Roger growled low, ready to protect. "What spirits?" Bill pressed, his curiosity battling with the rising dread. "What do we need to do?" "The key you hold is but a fragment of the truth," she said, gesturing toward the forest with an ethereal hand. "Unlock the heart of the forest, and you shall uncover the secrets buried long ago. But beware, for not all who seek the truth return whole." And just as she had appeared, she began to fade, the mist swirling around her until she was nothing more than a whisper on the breeze. The woods grew quiet, and Bill stood frozen, the weight of her words sinking into his bones. "We ain't alone out here," Jed murmured, glancing around the darkening woods. "No," Bill agreed, gripping the key tightly in his hand. "And we can't turn back now. We've got a mystery to solve, and I aim to see it through to the end." With Roger leading the way, they forged ahead into the depths of the forest, the shadows of the night swirling around them, beckoning them toward the heart of the mystery. The air hummed with anticipation, and the whispers of the spirits seemed to pulse through the trees, urging them onward into the unknown. The night wrapped around Bill and Jed like a thick quilt, the air charged with tension as they pressed deeper into the woods. Roger led the way, his nose to the ground, sniffing out scents that were lost to human senses. Bill kept a firm grip on the key, the mysterious weight of it a constant reminder of their purpose. The warnings of the spectral woman echoed in his mind, yet he found strength in the idea of uncovering the truth behind the Morrow family's legacy. "Look there," Jed whispered, pointing toward a cluster of trees that stood apart from the rest, their gnarled branches twisting like fingers toward the heavens. "That's where the light was coming from when we first saw her." Bill squinted into the dimness, his heart quickening. "Let's see what's hidden among those roots." As they approached, Roger's ears perked up, and he darted ahead, barking sharply. Bill and Jed followed, their boots crunching on the dry leaves underfoot. Just then, a flicker of light danced between the trunks, unnatural like a lantern held aloft by unseen hands. "Steady now," Bill cautioned, his voice low. They gathered close, their breaths held tight. Roger stood sentinel, his fur bristling with instinctual alertness. The flickering light grew brighter, and as they drew nearer, they stumbled upon an old, weathered chest, half buried in the earth. The intricate carvings on its surface matched those on the key. "This must be it," Bill breathed, his heart racing with possibility. "Do you reckon it's safe?" Jed asked, anxiety creeping into his tone. "If it's the answer we're looking for, we've no choice but to find out." Bill knelt beside the chest, placing the key into the rusted lock. With a turn and a click, the chest creaked open, revealing a collection of old letters, photographs, and a dusty journal. "Look here," Bill said, pulling out a yellowed envelope. "This ain't no treasure, but it tells a tale." They rifled through the contents, piecing together the story of the Morrow family. The journal belonged to the matriarch, a woman named Clara, who chronicled her life in a time when the land was wild and the law was oftentimes an afterthought. But what struck Bill was a particular entry that described a feud with a rival family, the Harringtons, fueled by greed over land and gold. "Seems like this amulet," he said, holding up a photograph of the amulet with its emerald glint, "was a way to bind the family's spirit to their land, a means of protection against those who sought to take it from them." Jed leaned closer, eyes widening. "So the stories of hauntings and curses were just tall tales to scare folks off?" "Exactly," Bill replied, nodding. "The real danger came from man, not spirits." And as they continued to read, they uncovered a plot to frame the Morrow family for the misdeeds of the Harringtons, using the amulet's rumored power to create fear and unrest among the townsfolk. "This ain't just about ghosts," Bill said, realization dawning. "It's about a legacy twisted by deceit," Roger suddenly growled, pulling their attention back to the path. Bill looked up just in time to see a figure emerge from the shadows. It was the man they had seen in town, the one who had spoken of curses with such fervor. His face was drawn, eyes wild with desperation. "Y'all shouldn't be here," he shouted, backing away. "You don't understand what you're messing with." "Or maybe you don't," Bill replied, standing tall. "We've uncovered the truth about your family's lies. You ain't scaring us with your tales of curses." The man's bravado faltered, and Bill stepped forward, holding the journal high. "This is the real story. The Morrow family was wronged, and you aim to keep that truth buried." "Y'all can't prove nothing," the man stammered, but the confidence drained from his voice. "We'll see about that," Jed chimed in, his voice steadier than he felt. "We'll be taking this to the sheriff. The truth has a way of coming out, and justice will be served." As the man turned to flee, Roger lunged, barking fiercely. The sound echoed through the woods, causing the man to trip and stumble. Bill and Jed were upon him in an instant, holding him until they could make their way back to town. The confrontation with the sheriff was swift. With the journal as evidence, the truth spilled forth, unraveling the web of lies that had plagued the Morrow family for generations. The townsfolk, once filled with fear, now rallied to honor the memory of a family unjustly shunned. As dawn broke over the horizon, the sun cast a warm glow on the town. Bill, Jed, and Roger stood at the edge of the woods, the air lighter, the shadows less daunting. "You did it, boy," Bill said, ruffling Roger's fur. "Together, we unveiled the truth and gave justice a chance." Jed smiled, relief washing over him. "Who would have thought a simple key could unlock such a tale? Seems like the real treasure was the truth all along." With the burden of the past lifted, Bill felt a weight of hope settle in his chest. They had ventured into the unknown, faced the darkness of deception, and emerged with their spirits intact. The bond between man and dog, tested in the shadows, had grown stronger, and the sun now painted their path ahead with the promise of new beginnings. As they turned to leave the woods behind, Bill felt a surge of gratitude. "Come on, Roger. Let's head home. The world's wide, and we've got many more adventures awaiting us." With Roger bounding ahead and Jed at his side, Bill stepped forward into the light, ready to embrace whatever lay ahead, knowing that together they could face it all.